Okay, we're going to get started. Good morning, everybody. I'm Nancy Steck. I think I pretty much know most of you who are here. This is part of New Jersey Lawyers Assistance Program webinar series, or actually we've been meeting for about 8 or 9 years. It's hard to believe that it's been that long for career transition. And today we have with us Randy Fisher, who's done several workshops for us before. And we're going to launch right into this and go let him take over and talk about interviewing skills, which are certainly changed in 2020 for a variety of reasons. Randy, take us away.
Okay, so I'm going to just share my screen here. PowerPoint. And I'm going to do this slideshow. Okay, and I've got my handy thing. Okay, let's see if this will work. Okay, great. Okay, so hi oh, I see a still of Nancy. She's looking very happy, frozen in time.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about interview skills, but we're going to talk a little bit more about the technical aspect of the interviewing, managing this whole Zoom experience so it actually works for you. Because I think when people sort of started, and even now, you know, when they started, it was sort of new and awkward and felt uncomfortable. And now, you know, 5, 6 months later, it still feels awkward and uncomfortable, except it isn't new. And it's a key aspect of having the technology fade into the background and make sure that you are prominent. So in the past, I've done seminars that really focus more on the behavioral interview part and you know, being prepared and answering the questions in a certain way. This time we're going to focus, as I said, a little more on, well, a lot more on the whole Zoom experience and how to make that work for you and to be, you know, relaxed and comfortable and prepared for you know, when you have to do it, because it's the way. So today, we'll talk a little bit about myself. Most of you know me, or I know most of you. We'll focus on, you know, setting it up, the Zoom properly, the camera, the actual Zoom experience. We'll talk a little bit about making sure the settings are set up for you, because there's a difference between the Zoom application and Zoom on the web. And I don't know why it's like that, but it's a little tricky, and it becomes even trickier when Zoom updates its software to introduce new features or to quash bugs or to increase security, and then it resets your settings back to the way they used to be. So we have to kind of be vigilant about that. In terms of discussion, actually, I prefer if people ask questions throughout. Either you have a question or you have an experience you'd like to share, or a perspective, or something I didn't say, or something that's really on your mind that you want to talk about. By all means, please raise that. You can, I guess, raise your hand or jot into the chat. And then we'll wrap up. Onwards and upwards here. So I do a little bit about me. I do marketing and communications for startup companies. I teach at Rutgers, but in many ways I'm a casualty of COVID because I kind of lost my job at Rutgers. I was teaching 2 courses, one in interview skills and the other in proposal writing, business and proposal writing. I was doing adjunct work since 2017, and were it not for COVID, I'd still be working there. So I've pivoted, and I'm doing more marketing work, and I'm helping people with resumes and LinkedIn bios. Okay, so the context that we're living in is COVID. Who could imagine this little, I mean, I guess in another era, it might have been considered cute, but it's not so cute. It's had a real effect on our lives and our work and how we interact with others, and how we prepare ourselves for interviewing. And you know, in most cases, well, I can't even remember actually having an in-person meeting with somebody other than walking dogs next to my neighbors. So this is the reality we live in, and it will be this way for the foreseeable future. I'm thinking probably September of next year. And it's a shared experience for all of us. And so we have to do the best we can in this situation. Whoops, what's going on? Why is this not working here? Okay. Okay, so some of you may remember this slide. You know, it's challenging, but it's not that hard. You know, once we start using these types of software, whether it's Skype, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, I think there's another one, Zoom, Team, FaceTime, Teams, and there's another one. You know, as long as we have it set up properly, it's really not that hard. And but the key is to have it set up properly. And in the case of, for example, Microsoft Teams, I had a meeting, I guess last week, and I hadn't ever really used Teams before. And you know, coming into the interview, into the meeting, I hadn't even had it installed on my machine. So I wasn't able to attend the meeting properly. So I think, you know, people still understand that, you know, technology is kind of uncomfortable, and, you know, there's some leeway for not getting it right. But I think that, you know, if you're going to an interview, it's really your job to be as prepared as possible and to master some of the technology, so you can kind of get that out of the way and focus on your message. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about distance from the screen. So I have, in my office, I have a 24-inch screen. And in this case, I'm talking off of a laptop. So the distance that I am from the screen is going to change depending on the type of screen that I have. And we'll talk a little bit about eye contact. It's really important to make sure that you're sitting in a way that enables you to have direct eye contact with the camera. In fact, you can see me looking straight at the camera here, and it's a different experience than if I'm looking down. We don't feel connected. I think this is a key problem in this era, is that we don't even feel connected to the people we love, let alone the people that we're interviewing with. So some preparation here is you have to make sure that there's an adequate distance between you and your eyes and the camera, that the height of the screen and the camera is at the right height. So for example, I looked at mine before. I made sure that I was close enough into the frame. But if I was higher, then I'd either have to adjust my screen or my chair. Okay, and I think we've all been in interviews or situations where, you know, just the framing of the camera tells us that the person is either unprepared, uninterested, doesn't care. And, you know, for us on the other end, we sort of say, okay, we're spending a lot of time in these Zoom meetings. Don't we want to be with people that have spent some time and effort to kind of get ready? And then the other thing is in the background. So normally I have a different background, but today I figured you all wanted to see my dog again. And in the background, there's an image of Vancouver, one of my favorite cities in the world. So anyway, so just be mindful of this. Okay, let's see if this will work again. Okay, there. So another thing, this is really, really important, is in the preparation. And actually, Nancy and I went through this in preparing for today's talk. She had glare, you know, hitting her glasses and actually giving a different shade to one side of her body. So she walked over, adjusted the blinds, And voila, a more appealing presentation, and certainly less distracting for her. So I've given a few examples here of where the glare can come from. You wouldn't think so, but if you had a white table, the sun will bounce off that table, even the blinds. And in some cases, whiteboards. Now, most of us don't have whiteboards in our homes yet. But when you're in an office situation, or let's say you're doing an interview in a room, like maybe sometimes in the schools, they have breakout rooms, and there's a whiteboard behind you. You can actually get glare off of there. And in the quest to have a really sort of clean background, you don't want a wire or a pole coming out of your head. So people will gravitate to what they perceive as a flat, clear surface, a whiteboard, but yet there's glare. And then it becomes very difficult for the interviewer to see. So we know that it's, with interviewing, it's partly what you say, but it's often 50–60% or more body language, the extent to which people feel comfortable with us. And if in the interview, you're not looking straight at the person, you're looking away, or they cannot see your eyes, that's going to have an impact on your ability to connect with the interviewer and the panelists in the room. Okay. Now, you may find it difficult. There may be glare coming from them, but hey, they're the ones who can give you the job. So you can't really complain. Just sort of take it in your stride and recognize that, everybody's not perfect, but you can do the best you can to moderate that glare. Something else that came up with my conversation with Nancy right before we started is many people, I and Nancy, have anti-reflective coating on our glasses, which presumably reflects the light or prevents the light from reflecting. Anyways, we came up with this sense that we actually didn't know what it did, other than maybe it cost us more money to put it on. Could it be marketing? But maybe somebody out there really can explain to us what anti-reflective coating is and does. I do believe it's important, but I'm not too sure how it works. So either the answer, or you could just Google it up. It's hard to Google while you present, but if you could Google it up and then share it with us, that'd be great. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the glare. The lighting is important. Some of us might have darker complexions, or we might be in a room which is dark. Basically want to light up your face, because people want to see your face, and we're hardwired for social connection. We respond better when we see people, and you want to give people that opportunity. So this here, see that difference? This one, number 2 here, is typical. You're tired, you're working in a smaller room, maybe you don't have the light positioned exactly the right way, and guess what? Your face comes out dark. Not a good look. Now, if you see in the top corner, I guess it would be the left. You see the light there? There's a light that's projecting up onto the ceiling. Well, that light, or a similar light, should be in front of this person's face to illuminate it, because that light there is going to give this effect of backlighting, and it's going to make this person or your face dark. So the way around this is to test the look before you're in an interview. We'll cover this later too, but you see that fan? Whenever I see a fan there, I get very worried. I start thinking about the scene from Apocalypse Now. You know, these helicopters coming in. The thing about a fan is once that gets moving, there's a noise that comes from it. And in the heat of an interview, you may not even hear that noise, but there's an audible hum that will come from that fan when it's moving, and it will be very distracting to an interviewer. Now, an interviewer, when you're doing that interview and you're not properly lit and you got noise coming from and the camera isn't adjusted properly, no interviewer they don't got the time to say anything. They don't want a confrontation with you, and they probably got a lineup of 5 other people. So you sort of ignore these tips at your peril. Nobody's going to tell you about these. You got to be prepared. All right, so some of the tips for lighting: avoid the shade on the face, avoid your back to the window, face the window, and recognize that at different times of the day, the lighting is going to be different. And now we're going into, is it daylight savings time? So if you take an interview, for example, at 4 in the afternoon, I mean, not only do you have to think about, am I better in the afternoon, but you also have to think about, oh, well, I guess it's going to be a bit darker. So I have to adjust my lighting so that the person on the other end can see it. I see, is there a question? Let's see what we got here. Q&A. Randy, what are your thoughts about an external microphone? What do you recommend for an HP laptop? Okay, Andrew, I will answer, whoops, how do I get rid of this? I'll answer that. How do I get rid of this? How do I delete this, dismiss it? Okay, how do I, oh, sorry guys. Okay, how do I get rid of this thing? Move to the bottom, no. Get rid of this, okay. Andrew, I will answer that when I get to the microphones. Let's see if I go back. Oh. So you see, even if you've done this before, it's when things start going wrong, it takes a while for them to go right, and you have to try not to get flustered while you're doing it. Okay, so should I dress up for a Zoom interview? Well, what do you think? So if it's a job interview, I would say yes. If you're doing a webinar, it's okay, you can wear a shirt. I wouldn't wear a t-shirt, but you definitely want to look your best. And you know what? People will really appreciate, just like in real life, they'll appreciate that you went to the trouble to look good. But yeah, I mean, if you're going for a job, you should do it. That's what I think. Whoops. Okay. Okay, so really important, brush your hair. I know it sounds ridiculous, but look, you're going on an interview. Even if you have to wet your hair down, you don't have to necessarily even put gel in it or tease it out, but just make sure it looks okay. Same thing as always, shave. Now I know ladies, you generally wouldn't necessarily have much facial hair, but if that's a concern at all, I mean, make sure you look your best and don't do it 5 minutes before the interview, because what happens 5 minutes before the interview? Problems. Things never work according to the plan. Okay, so you don't want to shave and then have little Kleenexes to blot up the blood. Shirts, wear a single tone colors, nothing busy, and it says not plaid. Well, guess what? I'm wearing kind of stripes and plaid. So for a job interview, you wouldn't necessarily wear that. Okay, solid colors, not black or white. The reason for not black or white is if you're sitting behind a white board, your white clothes or white shirt will melt into the background. If you're wearing black, similarly, if the lighting is poor, same thing could happen. Ladies, no plunging necklines. You know, this is important not to do in person, but also on the web. You could wear a blazer, and this is another thing, pants, wear them. I know we've all seen all kinds of videos where people, like the phone rings or somebody, you know, we'll get to this in a second, the kids yell, and then you instinctively jump out of your chair and the person isn't wearing any pants. Well, what are the chances they're going to get that job? I mean, it's funny, it's embarrassing, it makes for a good outtake on YouTube, some viral video, but in terms of getting a job and behaving, you know, looking responsible, it's I wouldn't go there. So you want to look good. That's it. You don't have to wear suspenders, but you want to look good. I think it's important. Okay. You know this guy here on the left? You know who he is, Andrew? Anyone in the legal profession should know who he is. His name is Jeffrey Toobin. He's a legal analyst for CNN. He's been there for more than 10 years or so. Well, not only was he caught with his pants down on Zoom, but he was doing something he shouldn't have been doing. Anyways, and guess what? When they closed the Zoom, he thought the mic was off. He thought the Zoom was off, but it wasn't. And so they recorded him, and I won't go into the itty bitty details, but you can find that online. But it ended up costing him his job. And of course, lots of embarrassment and shaming. And I'm sure some of the late night talk hosts have had a field day with his behavior. Pants, wear pants, okay? And for an interview, for our webinars, that might be an open question, but definitely for interviews, you want to wear your pants. I mentioned before that you always want to, there's a setting in Zoom that asks you whether you want to join a meeting with the camera on or off. If you're going for an interview, or the video on or off. If you're doing an interview, I would say off, and then select. So there's a step where you can put the camera on, because, you know, as I said, Zoom before Zoom is continuously updating its settings, and you have to make sure that it hasn't, you know, inadvertently, or one of the programmers inadvertently set the camera so it's always on. You have to make sure. So you have to be vigilant. Now, I would recommend not having sex with a partner during a Zoom meeting, but if for some reason you're going to do that, just remember the camera is always on, and you could be quite embarrassed. It could certainly sink your chances to get a great job. Okay. Okay, so some of the stuff around the background, we want to focus on your face, not what's behind you. So my background here is not a good example, because, well, in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. If I want to develop a relationship or a connection with an interviewer, I might leave that up. It's a choice I'm making. And that's the key here, is it's a choice that one is making. If I want to make a connection with somebody, I know that many people love dogs. Look at that dog. You know, you're going to be curious. You're going to ask me about it. I know you're going to be curious. So it's a way, it could be a way of developing a better rapport with the person. But on the other hand, maybe you have a background of, I don't know, people have all kinds of backgrounds. You know, Nancy has a china chest in her background. I think Andrew, I was on a meeting with Andrew and he was in a bar setting. Well, I think that was what it was. Um, so that's great for a club, but probably not appropriate for a job interview. So the thing is that you have to really think about, make some choices for yourself, see what you're comfortable with, and recognize that, you know, somebody definitely is going to be looking and is going to be curious about it. And they may or may not make inferences about you and your judgment. If you're going to, you know, do a blank wall, I think I have an image coming up of a brick wall and somebody has one piece of art. That's okay. But the thing is you don't want anything that's crazy, sexy, or weird, because from the interviewer's point of view, it's all weird, which means you're weird and they don't want you. So we have to eliminate any reason that could eliminate us from contention. So here's an example of a really cool, I like it. What are these? They're not zebras. Oh, they're zebras. But I mean, I think it's sort of distracting. I mean, I think it's a cool picture, but you certainly wouldn't want a backdrop like this because it would draw attention away from you and they'd be trying to figure out how many zebras are there here. I see 1, 2, 3. Do I see a 4th? How many do you see? Or do you just see stripes? Okay, perspective. So a lot of the cameras these days are, you know, they've gotten better and better. I use a Logitech, I think C920, I'll show it to you in a moment. But there's a wide angle view on the camera. So I recommend that you don't use that view because it makes you look distorted, odd. You know, obviously you want to fit in, and then it also makes it uncomfortable for the interviewer if they start to perceive you as quite different than you sound or what they expect you to appear like. There's another feature in the Zoom and it's called mirroring. And basically what it does is it flips your image so it resembles how it looks in real life. But the problem is then if you were in the interview and you say, oh, well, here's something on my right, it's really on the left to the interviewer. So I kind of avoid those fancy features. So here's an example of a fella who he's not, you see where his eyes are? He's not looking at the camera, he's looking above the camera, and he's not looking at the interviewer. And also the picture of his face, the image, it's too close. Imagine you're in a meeting and you're interviewing somebody and you're 6 inches away from their face. Very uncomfortable. I mean, these days we want to be 6 feet away from people. So this is, you know, I mean, the fellow's clean shaven. He's got a good, you know, background. You know, he looks like a nice fella. I'm sure he has interesting things to say, but he's just, the camera's just way too close, and it just doesn't give any kind of breathing space, you know, for the interviewer to feel comfortable. You feel like the person's almost on top of you. So no wide angle shots. Don't worry about, you know, be concerned about distortion. Adjust the camera angle and look directly into the camera. Okay, you don't have to, you know, become beady-eyed, but every now and then certainly look into the camera because you know that's where the interviewer is looking. Okay, so let's say, for example, the camera angle, you are a tall person, your torso is tall, you know, you're over 6 feet. And maybe your desk, you know, it's a certain level. You want to get the camera to be in the right proximity for view? Well, just, you don't have to buy a stand or anything. Just put it on a bunch of books and then test it out. You know, you could swivel the screen, but sometimes that doesn't help. Another book does. So you have to be comfortable talking. So, you know, try that. It's a very simple fix. Okay, so this is another example of poor camera angle. And a reason I use these cute dogs, well, they're sort of cute. I mean, well, if you like dogs, they're cute. But anyways, there were other pictures of what happens when somebody has not prepared, um, you know, the angle properly, and you end up looking into their nose. Okay, and that frankly is disgusting. In fact, it was so disgusting that when I went to put pictures in, I said, oh no, I can't do this. I have to put these cute dogs in here because I think you'll get the picture. Okay, so no one wants to look up our nose in person or in this situation. Okay, this and Andrew. So mics, should you use an external mic? I think it depends. I think it depends on your budget. I mean, if you can't afford it, well, don't use an external mic. I use these Apple, I have a picture of them coming up. I use these Apple headphones. It's got a built-in mic. It's got these earphone things. You just have to figure out which side of the ear they go in, you know, because you can do it backwards. It's easy. And make sure it's plugged in, and then I think you're okay. And in fact, using the mic is better than just using no mic, because there really is a difference in the sound quality. So, you know, do you need an external mic? I would say it's really not necessary, and it's an extra piece of equipment that could fail and something else to worry about. You know, you have to put, you know, not only do you have to adjust the camera on your screen, you have to adjust where the microphone goes. And then you might have to put like some windsock on it. Like it's just like, there's a lot going on in an interview, and the fewer things that you have to think about, the better. So, you know, unless you're doing podcasting, I don't think it's really that necessary. You know, find out, do some testing. You know, is the mic close, not close enough? Sometimes in Zoom, you know, let's say you're listening to some long-winded speaker. You might want to mute the microphone so people can't hear you breathing, because they really can. And some of these mics are very sensitive. Close your door to your room. I mentioned ceiling fans, the air conditioning. I used to type a lot in my interviews, and somebody who I really respect told me that clickety-clack was irritating him. And since I wanted something from him, I decided to stop doing the clickety-clack. So I write my notes by hand now. I can't believe it, but it's true. So you want to have everything at your fingertips. So I have water. It's a good time to drink. So you want everything ready to go and easy. Whoops. Okay, what happened there? Oh, goodness. Oh, there we go. Okay. I mentioned the Apple wired ear pods. They come in this fancy little case. They're 20 bucks. You can get them from Amazon. You can get knockoffs. Personally, I go with the Apple because of the quality. It's going to be better quality, and you don't want it to fail in an interview. And these things fail just by putting them back and forth into your computer. They fail. And, you know, then what are you going to do? So I actually have, in my house, I have 2 mics. I have one upstairs and one downstairs, because the less I can do going back and forth, the less of a likelihood they're going to break, and they're available for me when I need them. Webcam, I have this webcam, this Logitech C920 Pro HD Pro. I researched them all, and this is the one I bought. It's about $80, $90. so many of these webcams, they have all these different features and stuff. 720p is fine. Some will be a bit better resolution, but it's really not necessary. 720p is good enough, adequate. Okay. If you don't have kids in your house, in a few days, you're going to have them outside the house. It's Halloween. Kids make noise, and sometimes that noise is really a delight to listen to, but when you're in an interview, maybe not. So you want to send out the signal you're doing an interview, all has to be quiet on the Western Front. Similarly with dogs, it's cute when they bark, but not when you're in an interview. So we've all had these experiences. So we want to plan for them. And then kids, they're really fun to be around and they make you laugh. But gosh, when you're trying to get an $80, $100, $120,000 a year job, and you have to be thinking about kids making noise, and your attention is on the wrong thing. So, plan to mitigate that, and just let everybody know that you're in an interview, you need quiet so you can focus on the interviewers. And if you have to barricade yourself in a room, then do it. Okay. So everybody's got a phone. In fact, how many people have looked at the phone in their email while I've been talking? Probably everyone. But the thing is that when you're in an interview and the interviewer is doing it, you can tell. And it's very, very distracting. So you have to try to keep your focus, because you can tell when their eyes shift to another computer screen or their phone, you'll be able to tell. So you just have to really try to keep your composure. They may not be doing something that's appropriate, but it's your job to try to stay as focused and on message as possible. Okay, how early for a Zoom interview? How early? What do people think? How early should you show up? Well, I would say that you certainly should be ready, good 15 minutes before, because stuff happens, but in terms of clocking into the interview, I would do it, within a minute of the appointed time. The reason is you don't want to barge in on somebody. But the other reason, which is a really important reason, is, and still some companies do this, is they've skimped on the Zoom subscription. So you could inadvertently find yourself going into the meeting of the previous interview. And I've done that. It's happened. And it's, it's like, it's slightly awkward. It's also, I wonder what my competition looks like. How do they sound? But anyways, it's not a good practice. So as close as you can to the actual time. I would also have instant messaging. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and I'd have instant messaging opened just in case there's a glitch. You just let them know that you're on the Zoom interview. And I'd also have a copy of their cell phone number handy, just in case something doesn't go right. Sometimes people are late. Sometimes they forget. That's like, oh my God, how rude is that? But it happens. So we have to go with that.
Randy,
yes.
we just have a quick question maybe you can address here about recommending a camera that is Mac compatible. The Logitech one apparently is not.
Well, I have it and I have a Mac. So
okay.
It is.
All right, maybe we can address that later when we get to.
No, it's a C920. There's different suffixes, E, H, whatever. I have a 920 and it is compatible.
And there was also a question posed about having experience with AirPods.
What is that? Wireless? Wireless. I don't use them because they're like a fortune and people always lose them. So I don't use them. But if you want to use them, you can use them. Apparently, I was told that there's some way for, if you're wearing an AirPod, and for everybody, an AirPod are basically a wireless headphones by Apple. They're called AirPod. And they're, I don't know, they're like more than $100, and there's no wires. I guess it's Bluetooth or something. They connect to the computer. But there's some way for them to detect a new computer when it's in range. So you don't need a set of these things, a wired headphones for every single computer. But the thing is that they're very small. If you're using them for multiple purposes, you probably use them outside. And gosh, they could drop out of your ears, and they do that does happen. So, we don't really get many opportunities for interviews. It's just a fact. It's hard to get interviews, and when you get them, you want everything going for you. So I actually have a dedicated set of headphones for my computer. It's good. It's really good. So that would be my thought. Nancy, there's another question I see. I don't see what it is, but.
Well, there probably is more than one. One about using wired ear pods.
I would do wired. That would be
Okay.
what I would do. I mean, that's my recommendation.
Someone also made a suggestion just prior to an interview, remembering to turn off your cell phone. Just making that a habit.
Great advice. Mine is turned off. I'd say even before a webinar. Turn it off. I mean, have it in close proximity. So if it starts shaking wildly, and it just won't stop, it could be an emergency. You'd probably want to know about that. But yeah, certainly take it off.
And one last suggestion from one of our members in the audience here is that showing up for an interview her suggestion was showing up about 10 minutes earlier than you're scheduled, but not to turn on your camera or audio.
Definitely. Yeah, you want to make everything sure. Whoops. Oh, darn. Why is this not? You want to, oh, how come it's not? Sorry, guys. I don't know why it's not, why the PowerPoint disappeared. You definitely want to show up, make sure that you're available early, but not to jump on the call. So see if this will go. Okay, so I just mentioned this before. Zoom, there's 2 Zooms. And even for somebody as technical as myself, this is confusing. And so there's a Zoom on the website. You go to zoom.us. There's a website. You can get into a meeting from that website. Okay? But what Zoom also does is it downloads a web app to your computer or your phone. Okay? So you don't have to go to the website. Now, what makes it tricky is that for the website and the web app, there are different settings. So for example, if you want to customize your name, like mine says Randy Fisher, I think Customer Discovery Pros, I cannot set that up properly in the app. I have to go on the website. Okay? So just check that. And you know what? When they have a new version, that could change. That could end up in the app. But just remember that there are different settings per, well, one, the website and one of the app. And then, the other comment here was, you decide, I would say start with your video and audio off. It's a pain when you're doing a lot of Zoom calls, but just to be on the safe side, you end up having a fight with your significant other and the audio and the video is on and the interviewer can hear that. We want to avoid that. All right, and here's the usual stuff. Always have a pen and paper. I mean, they still haven't found a way to get rid of that. And water available for you. Turn your phone off. We talked about that. Have a clock. So I have an analog clock that I can just glance to the side and see how I'm doing in terms of time management for me, because I have in an interview some things to cover and I want to make sure that I manage that time. Noise, as we talked about that, and your surroundings. If you, let's say in your interview, if for some reason you have to present something like a slideshow or slides or some, I don't know, some whiteboarding work that you've done, do a test run beforehand. You know, even in this webinar, like for some reason my pointer didn't work and then the mouse disappeared. So if only you have to practice not getting flustered, that's positive. And the other thing which is really important too is most of us have multiple tabs, you know, in our browsers and apps that are running in the background. If you're doing an interview, turn them all off, close them down. There's this wonderful app extension called Session Buddy. Session Buddy. And what it does is it takes a snapshot of all the tabs that are open. And then you close your browser and then you can click on that later. It'll bring them up. It'll keep a record of what you had open. Now, the reason that you want to close these apps running in the background is they take up this random access memory. They make the computer run, you know, more labor, if you will. There could be some conflict with the Zoom application and these other apps that are running in the background. So you want to avoid that problem, or your computer, the fan starts going crazy and overheating, and then you're worried about the noise on the computer. Just remove that as a possibility and you know, prevent them from operating in the background and come back to them after the interview is over. Well, we're in the home stretch here, so you want to radiate positive energy. You want that job, and they want you, they hope. So you do your best to be positive and excited about this opportunity. And I had the slide before, just bring the best of who you are to the interview, and things will go well. And yes, you can. And that's, I think, it. So thank you, everyone. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions, or if you have some thoughts you'd like to share, love to hear them.
And if you could put your questions in the Q&A area. We have some thank yous, Randy, to you. Job well done.
Thank you to you.
And while you're all still here, and while people are maybe thinking about questions they'd like to pose, just two announcements. One, several weeks ago, perhaps maybe more than several, we had kind of an informal, impromptu pop-up meeting that Andrew Manns and I hosted. That was just a discussion, open discussion that was open to folks who are members of this group and attend this group. And Randy and I are planning one for the 9th of November. And again, it'll just be informal discussion. There's no presentation, but folks seem to benefit from the ability to just chat with each other, bring up problems, solutions, brainstorm, just share concerns and ideas, again, in an informal manner. So we will be sending a notice out about that, but it is going to be Monday, November 9th. Randy, 11:30, did we say?
I don't remember. It's either 11 or 11:30.
Okay, but again, we'll be sending something out for that.
Yeah, let me just add to that is, you know, we really want your feedback so that we can, you know, develop, you know, programming that meets your needs. And one of the things that Nancy had mentioned to me is that, you know, if there is energy or an appetite for this, we can think about doing something like, you know, an Ask Me Anything session, you know, whether it's once a month or once a quarter. But you know, bring more than your problems, bring your ideas. And as you're sort of out in this new context, if different things are coming up for you, or the same things but in a different light, you know, raise it, let us know. And, you know, or you may have attended a different type of networking event and you saw a practice that you really liked or seemed to really work. It could have been breakout rooms or who knows. Let us know, and we'll see what we can do to make that happen for this group.
And again, one more announcement. One of Randy's slides touched on combing your hair, how to dress, brushing your teeth, like the basics that, should be taken care of ahead of time. I'm going to be talking to a woman who spoke to this group several years ago, Pam Etzen, who's an image consultant, who's going to do a workshop for us going into a little more detail about your image via Zoom and going to, the interview process or meetings for that matter, just a professional look and what that looks like in Zoom land. And she'll be probably coming up sometime within the next couple of months. And another great seminar, and thanks, Randy, comment to you.
Thanks so much, Nancy. Thanks, everyone. We had a good crowd today, and really appreciate and enjoy this opportunity.
All right, I don't see any other questions at this point, so thank you all. Have a great rest of the day, and we will see you hopefully in November on the 9th.
Okay.
And